It's 2022, gentlemen. Is that weird to say?
Man, it's a freezing cold morning. I forgot to turn on the heat in here.
It's not bad. I think we all have jackets and stuff on.
I can see my breath, but
I can see your nipples.
all right.
Whoa, here's how we're starting. Here's how we're starting in 2022.
I like it.
Little pleasures in life.
I'm just kidding. I can't. You've worn a couple layers.
Oh, okay.
Happy New Year,
should we
gentlemen.
start over?
No.
Okay,
I'll leave
okay.
it going.
Should we
love
start?
I love it.
I'll leave it going.
Can
You
you
got a
see mine?
comedian.
I don't think so. No, we
I've
took
got
a little.
pockets over mine.
Yeah,
so
you're
you
good.
guys
You're
can't
good.
see.
Yeah.
I know that trick. So, Ken, life changes.
Yeah. We had a baby at the end of 2021.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yep. Right before Christmas, and we're a family of we have 4 kids now.
Amazing. So 6 people in the house, 6 humans.
Busy.
And a dog,
dad
too?
of 4.
Don't you have a dog? Or no?
No, we don't.
Okay.
You've
got to put your
My
foot down
kids
somewhere.
want the dog so bad. I don't want the dog so bad. I'm not a dog person. I love.
How about a cat?
I love dog people, but I'm just not a dog person.
How about a cat?
I'm not an animal person.
Oh,
I'll put it
really?
that way.
You are an animal.
Yeah, only room for
You
one.
got 4 of them in the house. So
That's
what do
so
you-
true. It's true. Yeah.
Well,
Oh, wow.
congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So we took a little break.
Yeah.
The beginning of January.
Yeah, we're back in season whatever. We don't even do seasons, do we?
This is the start of our 3rd year.
Wow, it's amazing.
So
That's
we started
amazing.
2019.
I think
2020.
I think we've got like 5 listeners now.
Yeah.
I think we
it's
solved the
amazing.
world's problems at least twice.
The agency world problem.
In our how many episodes are we? How have we done?
No, it's true. I mean, I get people reaching out to me. I know you guys do too. Like us about the different episodes that we've recorded, and it's funny because agency is so broad.
Yeah.
So it's everything from of someone who's doing freelance to a handful of people to people working in some of the giant 3-letter agencies. Yeah.
Yeah, I had somebody reach out to me the other day. I haven't even mentioned it to you guys, from some big agency integration AI company that wants to come on, that had heard about the podcast. So I guess it's going far and wide.
Yeah, and that's really cool because I'll just remind everyone, this started because we own agencies and other companies, right? And so we would get together in our men's breakfast and talk about, hey, what's happening with you and how you dealing with this thing and that kind of thing. And we just were like, hey, what if we recorded this and shared it with people?
Yeah.
Because nobody does that.
And there is a 4th member. We talk about this mysterious man, Mike. But we are going to get him
in our men's group.
We're going to get him on this year for sure.
We need at least Donna as a guest. Has he ever been on a guest?
No,
as a guest.
Hasn't even donned our podcast.
And he's the smartest one. That's the problem.
I know. He's holding all of his knowledge.
Exactly. He's holding out. Well, speaking of holding out on knowledge, what do you guys want to talk about today?
So I think it's the start of a new year. At least we can start on this topic. It's the start of a new year. Most people are trying to figure out what did they change this year that they didn't do last year. And I would propose that I think that's a good thing to rethink about stuff, but also that idea of you only think about it the first of the year is not really the time to do it. But I know a lot of people are, I know for me, it's like, I looked at last year, how do I spend my time, money, resources more wisely and do a better job this year? And so I don't know if where you spend your resources and time might be one part of that topic.
You're going to have less time this year.
That's right.
Especially
I will have less time, which is why that's top of mind.
Yeah.
Because, let's be honest, you can't manage your time, right? Time just goes.
Yeah. Time manages.
So time management is not it.
Oh, I can.
It is it is the only thing in this universe that goes and doesn't stop, no matter how much you beg it to.
Yeah.
Never comes back.
Or does it really?
That's a good question. I know. Let's talk about that.
We talked about this topic a little bit before we started the podcast, but I think one of my biggest challenges with time is that I've always got a squeaky wheel squeaking somewhere, and it takes me away from what I need to be doing to putting out fires. It feels like, and that's probably the biggest frustration of time management. And I'd like to hear a little bit about how you guys get around that. I know we all have a lot going on in our lives, and even whether it's even personal or business related, it just feels like everything wants that little slot in your calendar.
Everything. I mean, they're the loud things are gonna try and get time from you. They're gonna, and by loud, I don't just mean annoying, but they're things that you may irrationally put anxiety around, right?
Yeah.
And those are gonna get time. When the important things don't necessarily line up in that same way. So it's important to, I think, look at those things.
I know as I get older, I think one thing that I'm learning and becomes clearer, and I think it has to come with age and wisdom, is that those things that you think are really important aren't really important. And I know it sounds kind of trite, but the term "the tyranny of the urgent" is a phrase that always comes back to me at times, because there is a lot of anxiety that can arise around, I need it now, this is important. But at the end of the day, there's only really a few things that are really, really important. And I think if we can maybe start our days, I know I tried to, with kind of focusing on those, and because what we're talking about is really prioritization. It's really not, you can't manage time, you can't get more time, you can't do everything, but you can prioritize a few things. And I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the question of this hit me really hard. A friend of mine, was struggling with some of what I was trying to spend my time on and not being happy with that. And this person said to me, it's not really about, do you want to be doing it's not about, have you been doing the right things or putting your skills to the right use? It's really about, what do you want to dedicate your life to? And that's a big question. And so it hit me because and we're talking, I think agency people, this is one of the bigger challenges for them, because in the service industry, you got people that their problem is going to be the most important thing in your life, or they're going to try to make it the most important thing in your life many times, almost every day, right? So you have to have this really even more so awareness of what's important, what can I spend my time, what am I not going to spend my time on? So that question of, what do you want to dedicate your life to when it comes down to all the urgent things that come up? Do you want to look back and have all those, or is that what you want your life to be? I'm not even saying that in a bad way, because for a lot of people that is the thing. That's like EMS workers and even people in the service industry, like that's what they're there for, is like those urgent savior type of moments, and that's really needed. But the question has to be asked, because that'll pull you, those type of things will pull you in regardless of that. Right. If you ask that question, then you can know, okay, how do I align what I want and I believe I should be doing to what I am doing? And I have some tools that I use that we can go through. I know you guys do too. So we can go from abstract to practical here in a few minutes. But I don't know that people think about that. And I think that's a challenge. This is a challenge in the agency world. We all know it. Like, urgency wins out almost all the time. And it's actually our philosophy here that there's almost no emergency in our world, right? Like, let's be honest, it's websites and marketing and that kind of stuff, right? Like, it's not lives.
Unless a website goes down, that's a big e-commerce site.
I know. All I'm saying is it's still not lives, or heads will roll, I guess.
It's funny. In my early career, I worked for an agency, and my boss, he was a cool dude. He's a cool dude. He's still a cool dude. Still keep in contact with him, but I was stressed out about something, and he looked at me. He says, "Nobody's dying."
Yeah,
you know
right,
what I mean? It's like this is
just marketing.
He said it's just He said it's just advertising.
Brad, it's just advertising.
Just advertising. Yeah. Nobody's dying, and I'm like, man, maybe my reaction was like that. Like the world was, falling in. So
it can be sometimes.
I know.
Right?
I feel like that sometimes. Yeah, I know. I guess when a website goes down, maybe someone will die, but. I don't know.
It's certainly an anxious situation, but like when you put it in perspective, right. I think that's important too. When we were back in the day of BuzzPlant, we would say that all the time.
Right.
Like, okay, well, this is, because that would happen more often back then, right? Like websites didn't stay up all the time.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
they would
they
go
weren't as-
down.
things weren't liable.
And so if, that happened for someone, it was a, kind of an anxious situation. You can only do so much, right? Like
Right.
you can't walk over to the server and like reset it.
Right.
So, anyway, it's like, okay, well, freaking out's not going to help. So let's just get some Starbucks and come back and fix it, and
Let's walk down to Starbucks, which we did quite
and
a bit.
And it wasn't like we don't care about this. It was like anxiety is not going to help, right?
That's
like,
right. No, it doesn't.
So you can only do what you can do, and you have to do it with a calm mind. So I
Yeah.
know we're off on a tangent, but I think in the agency world, this idea of like what's important and how do I manage what's important is, I just think, an important thing.
Yeah, we've done lots of episodes, not lots, but a few episodes about client management and hiring and staffing. And, this whole idea of prioritization of time in the agency world has so many factors to it. And I'd love to hear some of the practical things that you'd mentioned earlier. But one of the things that I love to talk about, you guys know I probably drive you crazy, is really, it's really worth understanding how your personality is wired so that you're not trying to be or imitate somebody else in the way they prioritize or manage their time. Because what I've learned is I'm a much better big picture person that does really well to surround myself with people that I can mentor and guide and then drive the vision forward, and be successful that way. Whereas, where you can, or you, Brad, you might like to get into the details and manage, 50 things in a day, and that really gives you energy. That doesn't give me energy. So I think
I
part
hate
of
that stuff.
Part of it is just really knowing what you're good at.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think a lot of times, and again, it comes with time and wisdom, is we're chasing after and trying to be a time manager or to be successful in things or to do things that we probably are not wired to do really well. And once you find that, your niche, it makes a difference.
And sometimes we can feel, with some of these type of conversations, you can feel shamed into, oh, I should be doing that, whatever.
It's like Elon Musk, he goes
He's
to
up at
space
4
on
a.m.
he goes to space on his side gig. you know?
Or he doesn't sleep. He sleeps 3 hours a night. That we hear that, right? And so, like, as leaders of the things that we have ambition around, we might say, "Oh, wow, if we're not doing that, then we're not doing it." So we try and do that. Then
You've been sleeping 3 hours a night,
I've been
right?
sleeping 3 hours a night against my will.
Did you build a rocket yet?
Exactly. We made a baby, but
That's pretty good.
take
What happens when you don't sleep?
Take that, Elon. But the point about it is like, you don't take into account the fact that, like, you're not a morning person and you're cranky at 4 a.m. and you need 7 hours of sleep and all these different things. And everyone hates to be around you, when you're like that. That may not be, you don't know Elon or someone else.
Right.
You don't know their life. Like, that may be more of how they're wired. And it may not be how you're wired. And if you do that, then you burn out, right?
Yeah, and I think the challenge is that I don't know Elon Musk, his life. Like he may forego a lot of things in his life,
sacrifice
a lot that is probably important.
Well, he hasn't much of a family. We know his story over the years.
Yeah.
Like, he sacrificed a lot of relational things.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's part of it too. Is like the time that your time management is really important to what you want your life to be as a whole, not just your business. And I think that's, always a challenge. That's the biggest challenge, is work and life balance. And so
I think you're, like, a lot of people don't think about that, right? They think about it in the context of the business, and how, especially if you're a business owner or leader. And I think one thing that a coach of mine opened up to me is I used to think about it that way, and I was like, and because personal and work, like, kind of like separated in my mind. It's really one thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm just late to the party on that, but like for years I thought about it separately until someone opened my eyes up and were like, look, when you do a lot of your big picture thinking and your prioritization, and you're even what that comes down to, like, what you're spending your time on with a schedule, like, you have to consider your entire life. So it's all the things. It's taking the kids to school. It's like playing with them. It's doing, the big picture thinking for the business. It's the client meetings. Like it's everything together and it's not separate.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe is that natural for you guys? Like, cause for me, it wasn't until that happened. And I imagine, I thought, oh, maybe for a lot of people, it's like that. But you do have to think about it all together.
I think it's growing in self-awareness, like you said, to know that I can't compartmentalize there's only a few people that can compartmentalize their lives like that. That's not a healthy, normal human experience, because if your relationships are suffering, then your business life is going to suffer on some level. And you may not realize it. You may not be self-aware of it, but I think it's all one life and it's all one 24-hour period, and how you give energy to one thing. There's very few humans that can just like cut that off altogether and like not let it bleed over. I don't know if you guys are able to do that, but I don't know too many people who are able to do that effectively.
Yeah, I think that it can be, you can feel obligated to pursue certain things that you don't necessarily actually believe your purpose in life is, or that you want. And I think you like the Elons, I need to be like that. And you don't realize that comes with a price. And are you willing, do you want to pay that price? And so we often see the good, or the glittery side of those type of things, and not be aware of the other side of them. Like a lot of people want to be celebrities. A lot of celebrities are unhappy, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that that has been, that they say that, right? A lot of people, that we strive to be these things that sometimes we're not aware of, like what comes with it. And so I think part of this is, what do you want to dedicate your life to, and what do you want that to be for real? It's not like what I want to be like Elon or someone. It's like, what do you want that to be?
Yeah. I think I struggle a lot with this, and part of my struggle is I'll, like, for instance, have a business goal, and it'll be something that will be, I know I need to kind of dedicate to. It's maybe taking the business in a different, or in another direction, or not change, but adding something to the business, or growing the business in a certain way. And it'll be kind of like a charge that will be on my plate. And it gets to the point sometimes where I literally can't, I either don't prioritize it enough, or I let, the daily fires get in the way where I can't spend much time with it. And then after a year or so, it kind of changes, or it's something, it's just not the same as it was a year ago when you were really driving hard to kind of put energy into it. And then it finally kind of goes away or dissipates, and something else comes along. You know what I mean? Or something, you need to pivot in your business a little bit, and times change a little bit, so that what you wanted to do a year or 2 years ago is no longer really as necessary, and it kind of goes away, and you've spent a little bit of time in it, and it's kind of wasted. Like, I feel that a lot. Like I feel like I waste a lot of time on things that I can't quite finish. I can't quite get to the point where it needs to be, and then it's not really all that relevant after a couple of years, 2 or 3 years as much. And so I don't know. Do you guys deal with that at all? Where
I've dealt with that. One of the things that, and it still happens, one of the things that's helped me, at least personally, again, everybody's different, is because you have people that are vying for your time, and that will everyone in a lot of these positions, like our positions, like, you've got more than enough to fill your day. Like, you've got several days worth of work or things that, so you need to now choose which ones are not going to get done, and which people are not going to get answered. So my point is like, any one thing can consume all your time. And so in order to make space for that, I found that you have to make space, but then, you could start something, and then those things can consume that time over time. Something that helps me is that, like, putting some skin in the game. So, like, I don't know, for me, like, if it's like a new business initiative, like we're starting, or we have already started a kind of capital arm. But that takes time and investment to lead that thing. But if I'm not intentional about it, a million other things will take up that time. And even though I want to do it, and so putting some skin in the game. So, like, actually getting, okay, so like for initiative like that, there are other partners involved. That's skin in the game because they're not going to, there's
accountability.
there's with other things, like there have been other things in the past that I've wanted to do, and I've spent money like investing into the thing, maybe sign up, maybe if it's a new business initiative, I've hired a person, and they can't just sit there. They can't just sit there doing nothing. So it kind of makes me, it's that extra layer of accountability so that it becomes more urgent than you kind of conjure up urgency, so that's for your own good. That's helped me a bit.
Yeah. Well, those are some good ones. I maybe that's just normal though too. At some level, like you invest time and energy, and direction changes a bit, and you focus your attention on something else. And I think a lot of things like that, the frustration I have in my world in that area is because I'm kind of alone in it. There's no probably as much accountability. I might have some skin in the game money wise and stuff, but there's, it's kind of like my thing. I mean,
it's always good to surround yourself with people with a little bit different personalities to run those things by, because I would be doing a bazillion things and I always have people around me. I try to, that's like, that's a good idea, but why don't we hold off on that?
Yeah.
Or here's something you might want to think about of why that may not be a good idea. Or Bob, you need to focus on those 3 things that you said were important last week. And I think it's really important I know you have a business partner and people that you bounce off of.
When I was younger, I think, I tried to do 10 things at once. And as I got older, I realized I can only do 1 or 2 things well. Mm-hmm. And so I pretty much, just really focus on the business. But I just mean just general things, leadership things and growth and stuff. And I guess I have 2 phrases. Is I always want to try to duplicate myself, at the same time fire myself, because I'm very protective of my time. And, I think it's that Enneagram 5, the 2 things that I feel like there's not going to be enough of is time and money. Like somehow I'll run out of it. I will run out of time in my life. I don't know about money.
The government will give you money.
Yeah, I know the government's printing too much of it.
Wait. You own a business, so no, sorry, it's the opposite. If you own a business,
what I'm saying is that I think that mindset of feeling like somehow there's not enough money or resources in the world to do what you need to do is really not a healthy thing to think about.
Right.
Thinking about your time, though, that your time's going to run out. I think at times that's healthy to go, what do I want to do? You need to, reevaluate your life at times, and that your time is limited on this earth. We all know that. It's one thing we're guaranteed, right?
And I think guarding that time is really important too. It's because it's and we can talk about this. It's not just ourselves that somehow deprioritizes things, but it's other people that can come into your life that can deprioritize that time as well. And that's one thing, protecting your own time, not just for yourself, but from other people. In an agency world, there is a tyranny of urgency, not just in your own brain and anxiety, but your staff, your clients, everybody's pulling, saying, hey, I need this yesterday.
I don't know about you guys, but in my world, we had to be intentional about creating a culture of de-urgency or de-emergency, because people, even new people that come into our company, in wanting to be a good, like do a good job, there's often this level of something went wrong, emergency, and it's a negative energy a lot of times. And it creates this immediacy that everyone in the company needs to start focusing on this thing out of a good intention. And so we've created a culture of like peace in a way, if that's like the best word for it. Maybe there's a better word for it, but that idea of like, if something looks like it's an emergency, we're not going to like sit there and do nothing, but we're not going to freak out. Freaking out helps 0 people, right? Like when there's an accident on the side of the road, the most calm, steady people are the people trained to address it. They're not running around freaking out and yelling, right? A doctor or a surgeon who's operating on someone, and that person doesn't have a good chance. Like that person, the surgeon's the most calm person in the room. I feel with agencies, like I think you're a specialist and you're the same way. And so you've got to be intentional around that piece. And I know a lot of agencies are not like that. And I don't think it's natural. Right. I think it's natural to be more emergency oriented. So we've had to like condition people, like even like someone will come forward and say, "Hey, this thing's happening." Okay, cool. It's just a thing, you know. Now we assess, like, is it actually urgent right now? It may not be actually. So don't worry about that thing. It'll be fine. Do this and this. But that culture of de-emergency, no 9 p.m., 1 a.m. emergencies. It's like, let's plan and let's be as calm as possible. Now, when there's a situation that really is a situation, which I find are rare. If you put it through that filter, I find like the actual emergencies are like actually very, very rare. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but like in our world, like once you put it through that filter, like 80 to 90% of those things are not really emergencies, and they can just be dealt with in a normal way. But when those emergencies do truly come up, you have a calm-minded team that puts their effort towards it. You focus on it, you execute on it, and you do it.
Yeah.
I find that in my career that a lot of the emergencies are based on deadlines that are coming up and that are going to be missed. And it's typically as somebody, I mean, we all do it, right? We get behind on things personally, and if there's a team involved in the deadline, one ball's dropped somewhere, and then it's a heightened. Let's everybody get together and like solve this thing quickly because I dropped the ball and I didn't tell anybody earlier, and now we're behind or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's just and so I think having good processes in your project management too, and a good idea of where you are in projects also helps with that a lot too.
Let's talk about some of the practical tools.
Yeah.
That's a good segue.
Yeah.
What do you use, Ken?
Well, I think one of them I've mentioned these before, but one of the biggest things is a coach. And when you were mentioning Brad, like earlier, someone when it's just you, like that coach provides the level of not just you, no matter who you are in whatever you're doing. And you tell that person, if they're a good business coach, you tell them, here's my goals. And then they'll put appropriate and significant pressure on you to, if you really want those things, and what does that mean? And you kind of talk through that and then they'll put appropriate and significant pressure on you to following what you said you want and do, and that accountability, and even it's just, I think that's invaluable from that standpoint. It helps to talk with someone and be like, this and this is what I believe I want in my life, and that person then challenges the reality of your current life and then says, that could be a friend, but I do think a coach who's got skills in that world and it has a recurring meeting with you to keep up with that is a good thing. But that's one thing is that, and it actually forces you to deal with like the reality of your current life and what you say you want, which are typically different. And there's typically a bunch of things that we forego what we say we want to not create waves and disruption in our current life. And we end up looking back on our life and being like, we didn't do what we believe we should have done when we do that. So that's one, and I've grappled with that quite a bit, and it's uncomfortable, but it's for a benefit, and you feel good about it. One of the things that I use so then you have to plan your day and be intentional about it, and so the Eisenhower matrix is one good way to do that, like the urgent, important, urgent, not important,
right?
Not not urgent, important, not urgent.
Now, you do that on a weekly basis with your projects or things that are coming up for the week? I
don't do the matrix with it, but I do that with regard to like, and I use a couple other tools for like bigger picture planning. Like in order to get to my stated, what I want my life to be dedicated to, what does that mean? And typically that means there's a bunch of not urgent, important things like that. A friend of mine calls it the money box. That's the bottom right-hand box of the Eisenhower matrix. That thing's never gonna Those things are never going to come knocking on your door. They're the things that for most people would generate the most wealth, or maybe fulfillment. He calls it the money box, but like the fulfillment aspect of it. And they're the things that you'll probably forego because it's not going to become urgent unless you're intentional about it. And so typically when you look at, and for most people, when they look at like, what do they want my life? What do we want our lives to be? Most of the things fall into that box. They're not urgent things, right? Those things that are going to get you to where you want to be are not things that are knocking on your door typically. And so I do some level of planning with that. And with some of those things, that's where making them urgent is a little bit of a hack of that I've been taught, is like investing into some of those things to where they become urgent.
Right.
Then they can't just sit on the sideline because they have their own voice, and their own voice is squeaking.
So those are the things like, well, that's what I was talking about. Really, that's my money box. The things that I know that I need to do. They're like a year, 2 year projects kind of thing, but without the accountability to make them urgent.
Yeah,
They're not urgent, right?
Right.
They're not screaming at me. So.
They're not gonna be, and if they're not, then unless you have a lot of discipline to like make space for them, which is really hard for anyone. Like it's gonna be harder to do those. For me, my trick is always worked better for me is to somehow make them urgent. Like, if it's a strategic company initiative, maybe it's a one person hire for that.
Yeah.
If it's maybe it's a little investment on it, maybe it's joining a class, maybe it's coaching is a good part of that too.
I think for me, the money box is where that's where I love to be. Like that fulfills me, like working on things like that. And so if I go too long without spending time into that world, I find that I start getting like maybe a little more depressed. I get like, it just feels like things are kind of very mundane, boring. It's not what energizes me. And so I need to be playing in that space, but I also need to get that money box finished. It's not that I'm not a finisher. I'm definitely a finisher. I can finish stuff, no problem. Like there's people that just can't finish anything. I can definitely do that. But it's harder when you're trying to do too much. And I don't feel like I'm trying to do too much all the time, but it's just, you get to the point where you just kind of give up. Like I just can't get time to do that. I just push it aside and just keep on. Well,
for some of those things, because the reality is you're dealing with 24 hours in a day, right? So like the reality is there has to be some sacrifice to get to those things.
Yes, maybe I'm not willing to sacrifice
unless you don't have a full day, which you do. Almost everyone does, right? So that's why where the rubber meets the road is like, oh wow, I can't do both.
Yeah,
like I've got to sacrifice something, or I've got to hire someone to do it or something.
So we use Asana for like project management, and it does, you can do time management in there as well. Obviously, a lot of people use that, but I don't do well with task. Like, don't give me a list of tasks. I'd put task in a calendar.
Yeah.
Like I have to separate. I have to actually dedicate time to that. Like if it's not in my calendar, I'm not doing it that week because my calendar is full.
Yep.
Because I fill it up within 2 weeks beforehand. It's almost all full. And so all my tasks that I have to do are being put in there as time slots.
That's a great example of what I mentioned earlier. Like if somebody were to do that with me, that would be so non-productive. But for you, that's the only way that you can do them, right? Like give me a list of tasks. I will gamify it and say, I will check that thing off before the end of the day because I love to like challenge myself.
And maybe maybe it's not good for me. Maybe I
think if it works, it works.
Well, maybe I allocate too much of time in my calendar to finish a task, and I use all of that time, and I don't need to use all that time. Maybe I could, if I just like gamified it, I could get it done in half the time, and double my
whatever
production.
It is. Somehow you have to figure out. I think that is an important point. Like you have to figure out how do things that are supposed to get done, and a list is not going to get it done. Like maybe gamification gets it done. For a lot of people, I would say like a calendar is probably a good way to start because let's be honest, it's your time of it's the amount of time you have in a day, right? So, but the point is like for most people though, they don't do that. A lot of people put a task list together, they overfill that task list, and then they don't put it on a calendar so it doesn't get done, or they don't do anything. So they just start working on it, right?
Yeah.
If you just start working on a giant task list, who knows how long it'll take? Plus, we all know that a task will take as long as you give it.
Exactly. And maybe,
So, yeah.
also, I realize for me is that when I'm working on the money box or those kind of things, I need to be in flow, and I need to be
Yes.
flow.
Yes.
Takes me some time. I can't jump into that money box project when I've got like 20 minutes to work on it, and then I got to jump out in 20 minutes to go to another meeting. I need time. So what I do is for those projects, a lot of times I will dedicate a whole day. So I just take off a whole day and say, I'm working on this project all day long. I'm going to get into flow. It takes me, a half hour to get going to that before I'm really feel like I'm maximizing all of my mind and getting that project done or whatever. And so I think that's how I've learned to work for myself.
You have to get there, and I'll piggyback on that, because in order to get there, you have to know two things, or you have to do two things, I believe. One is, we've talked about this before, but you have to know what time of day.
Yes.
You're do you do more creative things? Are you more creative in the morning, and you more task oriented in the afternoon?
Yep.
You got to know that about yourself, because then you can know the second thing, which part of what you said, which is then you can know how to time block your weeks. Like, so you may not have all the tasks in, you may not want to put all the tasks in, and you may have another way to getting them done. But what I believe everyone should do is, if you want to move the ball forward on certain fronts, especially money box items, and then you also have other things like that need to get done, like certain meetings and other things and client work, maybe whatever, like you need to plan your week out in a strategy, like I see that it says it's like a battle strategy, right? Like, we're going to conquer this island, and the way we're going to do that is we've got, 5 days, two halves of each day, let's call it 10 blocks, and we're going to spend 25% of our time doing the stuff, the nuts and bolts stuff, and we're going to spend whatever. Like, I think you have to put a strategy together for your week, at least I believe, in some way. For me, it works as a time block. For other people, maybe other things. But the point is you have to know when you're most creative and when you're not, and when, how to schedule these things. And then I really believe in, you've got maybe 10 blocks, and you say, okay, this one is for that new initiative. It's Wednesday mornings, and I go away because my team can handle everything they should be at least for a few hours, right? So I go away and do that thing. Every single day I've got to do a certain level of client work, right? Because I'm still doing that. So maybe every afternoon is when I schedule my meetings with clients and other things like that. Whatever it may be, those two things I believe help get to what you're saying, which is actually being able to dedicate time to those things. Knowing when you're most creative, and putting a time block together.
I'm really good in the morning for creative, working on the money box stuff. Probably that's where my mind is, and then after lunch, I feel like it's a lot of good. I'm good at task, something I don't have to think too hard. My brain's already.
Yeah, I'm very similar in that way. What about you, Bob?
Evenings is when the juices get flowing.
Night
Oh, really?
All right.
Yeah, I used to be that way when I was younger, but
It's a musician in him.
I can honestly, I've trained myself I can flow in the morning or the evening, but evening is when I think I really find that, I prefer to work out in the evenings. I prefer to do creative things in the evening, but I've learned and trained myself. I can do it all day. It's not like, and I'm not creative at all in the morning, but.
And, I think as far as time management, I we all know that if you can take time out to exercise and to do things, the time that you are working, it just seems you seem to be a lot more efficient. If you're healthy, you're eating well, those kind of things, you're able to just do a lot more within the time frame. And so I feel like I'm always able to get everything I need done, even when I do, leave time for those things.
Yeah.
In my day.
There's something about ritual and consistency. And I think that it would be amiss if we didn't mention that, is there's something about regular rhythms and rituals, and whatever that might be for you. It's different for everybody. There's just something, I know you talked about getting up and making coffee and doing whatever. It's that's a rhythm and a ritual for you that I think helps with our time management, when we know what the flow, how our brain is gonna move through the next few hours. And it's not that you get in a rut and it gets boring. It actually enhances your life and creates more creativity. I know when I was younger, I was all over the place all the time. Your brain was going and this, today I'm doing one thing, the next day and that's not always a bad thing. It's good to mix it up, but there's something about finding that ritual, whether it's meditation or yoga or prayer or reading, whatever it may be, is just getting in that rhythm. It's really helpful for time management and throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, because your brain is meant to operate a certain way. It likes repetitive stuff.
Right.
Like that's what your biology is. And so you kind of have to trick it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So conditioning yourselves to the things that want to get you where you want to be versus the things that don't will actually trick your brain into actually getting you there without you having to think about it so much, right?
One thing for me,
you put money box items into those rituals and those rhythms, or things that create space for them, then all of a sudden, over time, now you'll be just conditioned doing them.
Yeah, journaling every day, specifically in the morning, is really helpful for me, and I know for a lot of people. Just writing down what your priorities are that day, writing down what you're grateful for, writing down what your emotions you're feeling at any given time, or your thoughts or your dreams or your pains, just writing down those things for 15, 20 minutes every day helps to get like you said, gets your brain flowing and in the right frame of mind and focused and starting that flow early.
Yeah. I have to remember to give myself some grace as well when it comes to those big money box projects and stuff that that might be 2, 3, 5 years down the road. I mean, I don't know very many businesses that you could say is really successful until they've been around for about 10 years. I mean, really, it takes time, and I think give yourself some grace that tomorrow's a new day. So if you haven't got as far along as you think you have with a project, or you don't shame yourself for it, just get back up on the horse and know that tomorrow's a new day, and maybe try something different. Like you said, put some accountability on it. Re-engage it in a different way. So
yeah, there's a cycle. I'm trying to remember what it was. It's by John Ortberg, and it's I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I can't remember all the steps though, I think, but it starts with overcommitment. Like you try to do more than you think you can. And it goes into fatigue, and then it goes into guilt and shame. And then that goes into quitting. I think that's the cycle. And so if you feel shame, or if you try and do too much or do things outside of your personality, and but if you get to that shame point, it's the step before quitting. In my experience, that does happen. So how do you combat that? I think when you mention what you just mentioned is good. Like if you haven't been able to do it, feeling shame is not going to help that. It's going to make it worse. So forget it and start over, right? Just start again.
Yeah, you can never change where you've been. You can always change where you're going.
That's right.
And it's just doing a little bit each day and consistency. At the end of the day, we can talk about all these great people and what they've done, and the Elon Musks and the Bill Gates and all those. But I bet if every single one of them you were to sit down and ask them, it's consistency. It's consistency. It's consistency. And I think building that into our lives and understand how we're wired, and using some of these tools, I think are really, really helpful.
One last little tool that has worked well is this being only one person, even if it's the leader, doesn't really help. I think you have to spread it across your culture and your team. I found that to be really helpful. And so we've conditioned people over time to kind of operate in some of the things that we've talked about here that have worked for us. And doing a daily stand-up, first thing in the day we do a stand-up, and the goal is it helps align everybody else around what they're supposed to be doing that day, rather than just leaving it to chance, right? And so it's more like a team game plan before a game, like a huddle. If people aren't doing that, that's helped us a ton. In just aligning everybody, and so and you're able to deal with any emergencies that might be there, or supposed emergencies and that kind of stuff, and be intentional about the day. That's been helpful.
That's good. Well, gentlemen, go out and make it a productive day today.
I have a suggestion for our next episode. So I've got my word of the year, which is actually based on a lot of the conversation we've been having.
Don't say it.
I'm not going to say it.
Okay.
But we've always done, our tradition's been this,
Yeah.
one of the first episodes of the year, we do these kind of like
I'll have
words
mine
for
ready.
the year.
I'll have mine ready.
Okay.
Next episode.
And I will have what we said last year ready to see if it
Yes.
really
Ooh,
played
right.
out.
That's good.
All right, gentlemen. Until next time. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.